Welcome to our next series of CAB Conversations. This spring, it will be Get Growing. I'm Meghan Grebner, Indiana Farm Director for Brownfield Ag News, and I'll be your host again this season. To get things started, we will go around the Corn Belt and get an update and kind of get to know some of our farmers that will be taking part in this with us this year. Zach, we will start with you. Zach, good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead.
Give us a little bit of background about your operation and a little update so far to the 2014 planting season.
Yeah, I farm with my dad and brother in south central Nebraska. We're near Grand Island, about an hour west of Lincoln. We farm corn, popcorn, soybeans, and a little seed corn. So far, this season's been, it was cold and dry, and then it was cold and wet. So we're just kind of getting started with planting. We're maybe 10% done. Just kind of really getting the rust off things right now. Trying to finish up field work out ahead of the planter. We're not real concerned yet. You know, this is a little later than we'd like to be planting, but you know, we're still in pretty good shape. We've gotten some big rains, at least for us, the last few days, and so it's slowed things down quite a bit. But really, we look like we'll probably be able to make some pretty good progress in the next 10 days, so we're in pretty good shape.
Zach, and we'll talk about those rains and what it means to you guys coming up in a little bit. Keith, in South Dakota, let's get an update and a little bit more about you.
Sure. Keith Alverson. I farm near a little town called Chester, South Dakota. It's about 45 miles northwest of Sioux Falls. The farm with my dad and my uncle, and also a neighbor that's you know, an employee and farms a little bit on the side, that's involved in the operation. Of course, our families are all deeply involved, whether it's out in the field or behind the scenes, to keep us all going. Corn and soybean mix, with about a third of our acres or so that are irrigated, and the rest is non-irrigated in this area. I guess that's kind of the bulk of what background is for me, but we also, as far as the planting progress this year, we're about a third of the way done. You hear varying reports from the guys in the area. You know, I know guys that are completely done. I know guys that haven't even started. One of the big issues for us is, you know, we've been really cold, but guys worried about putting it in and having the seed sit in the ground for a long period of time and losing stand because of that was one of the things that held some of the folks off. And that's the reason that we haven't been at it harder. But we're on about day 4 of a rain delay here, and you know, just kind of some drizzly, dreary weather that's wet enough to keep us out of the field. Only received about a ½ inch this last week, but you know, it's just a little trace each day has been the bulk of it.
Thanks, Keith. Judi, in Illinois?
We farm in about, we're firmly in the central Illinois, right north of Springfield, so it takes a while to get out of the state. But we finished corn on Saturday and haven't started any beans yet. We had an inch of rain total out of these last couple rains. We don't have wheat this year. It's the first year we haven't planted. We didn't have wheat this year, so.
Thanks, Judi. We'll talk to you more a little bit about your corn planting progress and some of the things that you're seeing here in a little bit. Okay. Dave, in Indiana, you're up next.
Yeah, Dave Lowe, East Central Indiana. We're just an hour straight south of Fort Wayne. We've been wet. A lot of anhydrous went on. There is some corn planted in the area, but very little. Seed corn companies were very reluctant to encourage us to go forward. We've done spraying and some field work activities, but basically because of the cold, damp area that we're in, we have been reluctant to move forward. So that's, I would say, as far as in the area goes, there might be 3,000 to 4,000 acres planted, and that's a That's in about a 4-county area, so 4 or 5 county area. So there's not a lot of corn been planted around.
Thanks, Dave. Allen in Ohio?
Hi, yeah, I'm Allen Ett, farm in a little town called Ashville, just south of Columbus, about 25 miles. I farm with my brother and his son-in-law. Corn, soybeans, and wheat. Very little wheat, mostly corn and beans. We raise hogs, fair to finish, and feed a few calves. Progress-wise, we've got about 500 acres of corn in. It's been a very small window, kind of like Dave. It's been cool and wet here. All of our corn ground, we've been over all of our corn ground and worked it, but just planted for about 2.5, 3 days there last week, and we have had rain ever since. Actually, we're up to about 4 inches here on the home farm, so it's pretty wet. It's going to be the first of the week at least before we can even think about doing anything, because it's pretty cool now again. So we didn't get any Keith snow up there, but it's cooler than we like for this time of year, so it's going to be a little bit. But we'll just wait and take her as we get her.
Thanks, Alan. Adam in Missouri.
Hi, I'm Adam Casner, Carrollton, Missouri, north central Missouri. We're about an hour east of Kansas City. Planting progress around here is we're almost done. I'd say we're probably 95% done. We have about 130 acres left in the hills to get done. We would have got that done, but we decided we thought we were in pretty good shape, and we took Easter Sunday off, and as it turned out, we needed that day to finish up the planting. But overall around here, a lot of people are done, big and small, but then there's some people that haven't even started yet, so it's kind of like everybody's been worried about whether it's time to start or not, and we got the go-ahead from the seed companies around here that, so they weren't worried about. We had the temperatures to go. And then from, I think, Monday or Tuesday, we've got 2 inches of rain here, and so it's kind of halted everything. But overall, we're in pretty good shape. We had a lot of trouble getting our anhydrous put on this spring. We didn't get any put on last fall, and so we had a terrible time getting anhydrous to us up here. But once we got all that sorted out, we got planting, and so like I said, we're about almost done, and overall pretty good shape because we got the corn pre-emergent spraying done right up behind the planter. So as soon as it dries up and we get the last corn acres planted, I'd say we'll throw the bean units in and go right after the beans.
Thanks, Adam. For Alan in Ohio and Judi in Illinois, who has, and even for you, Adam, and with this much progress being done on your corn planting, Judi, with the weather that you've had, we're seeing cooler temperatures here in the Corn Belt this week. Concerns that you have at this point?
I really don't have any concerns with the cooler weather. We had some really warm temperatures right before this cool weather, so I think it warmed the ground up pretty well right beforehand. And we're going to get some 70s here again in another couple days. So, and we dug up a couple fields and just seeing where the germ was, and there was one that was just about to spike through the ground, and another one that had germinated and it was coming up. So I'm not too concerned about these corn varieties these days.
What about for you, Alan?
I would agree with Judi. We're probably a little bit more concerned than she is just because we've got so much water. I'm not worried about the cold, but the cold and wet combination is not good. However, I'm not really concerned. I think if we can get some sun here, we'll be fine. We'll probably be wanting some rain the end of next week if we get warm next week and crust this ground over. We'll probably be looking for some showers to maybe pop this corn through. I really don't want it to go to sunny and 80. That may not be good. Sounds crazy, but it could crust it over. I don't know.
Keith, you've had some pretty exceptional cold temperatures in your area. Before we got started, we were talking a little bit about just about how that affects things. What does happen when it gets that cold with this type of weather moving in?
We I'd mentioned before we got on the call that it's not uncommon for us to have a snow shower that goes on our first planted corn. I'd estimate that in my farming career, it's maybe happened 40% of the time. Where we'll get a little bit of snow, an inch or two, just enough to make the ground white, and have it be there for a day or so, and melt off then right away. Our big concern in this area is extended periods of cold, and that's kind of what we're getting into right now. And that's, I mentioned there's varying degrees of planting progress here. I've heard of guys that, are completely done, that, even had put a little bit of beans in before this rain moved in, and some guys that hadn't even started. And, if we get a couple weeks of cold weather, last night it was down into the 30s. It topped out at around 40 yesterday. I think it's supposed to be a little over 45 today. We just worry about that, the cold tolerance of the plant, and actually coming up, if we start sitting in the ground for, 3 weeks plus. It's just that little corn seed can only last so long in there. So that's our primary concern. Forecasts can change. It wouldn't be uncommon for it to warm back up here, but time will tell. Things are looking a little better next week. They're talking in the 60s, so that would be good. I mean, the primary concern would just be sitting for a real long time in the ground. Thanks,
Keith. Zach, you mentioned you went from cold and dry to cold and wet. As you got into this spring, how, I guess, moisture deficit were you at that point, and how much has this moisture that's come through helped to build up some of the ground moisture?
Look, going back, to the last couple of years, obviously 2012 was really dry, and 2013 started the same way until about the 1st of August last year. And we had really solid rains through about the first week in November that caught us back up. We left some of our soil moisture monitors out in the field through harvest, and we actually got back up to full profile by the end of harvest, which was good because I think after about the 5th of November, from there through the 1st of March, we had about an inch of moisture total. We never had more than a couple inches of snow at a time. I mean, it was a really, really dry. It's been looking kind of ugly around here. So last Wednesday night, we got about 2.5 inches of rain, which was the first real substantial moisture we'd gotten in a long time. I was doing field work that day, and it was starting to look like the Dust Bowl around here. I mean, even with minimum tillage and no-till stuff going on around, I mean, you couldn't see the horizon because everything was covered with dust. That's obviously, we've gotten that 2.5 inches, another 1/2 inch of rain since then. So it's definitely settled the dust. We should be in pretty decent shape moisture-wise going into the growing season. As long as we don't get real hot and dry, we'll probably actually be in pretty decent shape moisture-wise. It's still going to be a little dry on top, but down below we've actually got better moisture than you might expect for as little moisture as we got over the winter.
At this point, are you? We're at May 1st and May 2nd, so the first part of May. Are you concerned only having 10% of the corn in the ground?
A little. I mean, obviously, we'd like to be. A lot of years we're done by May 1st. There's a lot of guys around who have made some pretty good progress. But as easy as it is these days to get corn in the ground, I mean, you can plant a lot of corn in a hurry, and next week looks like we're going to be in the 70s all week. I would anticipate we'll probably be done at least with corn by the end of next week. So it's not that big a concern. I remember I just saw the stat, looking back at the crop progress report last year. In 1 week, the U.S. planted something like 42% of the corn crop. So we can get it in a lot quicker than we can get it out. So right now the calendar is not that concerning to us. If it turns into like last year where we got snow on May 7th and 8th, we might be getting a little more nervous.
Thanks, Zach. Dave? Same question for you. We're pretty late. You don't have too much going at this point.
No.
How nervous does that make you, especially having, some of the other things that you guys have to take care of?
Well, actually, not nervous at all. And the reason is I don't know if the rest of you guys have seen the book that Howard Buffett has written, and it's called 40 Chances. And I have had 40 chances to raise a crop, and I'm working on my next section. But in all the sessions and listening to the expert, if you would, that emergence of the corn coming up even is probably the number one criteria of a good corn crop, and the ground has to be warm for that to happen, obviously. And so I'm not concerned at all, quite honestly. I know there's warmer days coming, and so consequently, last year, the first year that we've ever had, that we've averaged almost 220 bushel the acre, and that's excellent for us, obviously, and that's what we want to try to continue to do is maximize our yield efficiency, and as I spoke of, is that corn planted and a lot of beans planted very quickly. So the window will be there. We just don't feel quite right about putting it in at this time. But it'll come. It'll come.
Adam, for you guys to get started, to finish up on corn and to get beans in, what do you need in your area to get rolling?
Well, what we need, we're going to get this weekend. Sounds like it's supposed to get sunny and almost in the 80s again. So that'll probably get us in by the first of the week and get finished up and get going again. So, like I said, we're going to get what we're going to need here pretty quick, hopefully.
Taking the uncontrollable factors out of the scenario, so weather, as a farmer going into a growing season like this, Adam, what's your biggest concern and the thing you're watching the most?
Well, if you take the weather out of it, it kind of takes the big one out. I really don't know what you say would be the number one concern other than weather.
Are there any pests specifically that you're monitoring this year? Concerns about weeds? Anything along those lines?
Not necessarily at this point. Kind of dreading the Palmer Almerath if that ever shows up here. Hope we don't see that, but I know it's getting closer. And as far as pests, we're trying to take care of those on our corn pre with insecticide in the pre. So hopefully we're taking care of those ahead of time and keeping a good mode of action rotation on our chemicals and trying to keep the weeds knocked back and not give them a chance to get too far ahead to where you can't kill them.
Judi, with the corn being planted, you having your corn planting complete, obviously beans are next, but aside from beans, what are the next things that you guys are doing around your operation?
Right now we're working with some cattle. We have one cow left to calve for the year, but we've got the kids are going to be showing in some regional shows this year, and we're scheduling those and basically working with the cattle, getting them ready for the summer and everything.
Guys, this is your chance to also to talk to each other. I don't have to ask questions, and I don't want to hog everybody's questions because I'm sure you have them for each other. So as we open it up to wrap things up on our first episode of Get Growing this season of Cab Conversations, what questions do you have for each other?
Well, Megan, one question I've got. I know we've had to change our program for resistance and tolerance to glyphosate, but just wondering. I think maybe it was Adam maybe that said that they were changing things up a bit, and I just wondered if everybody was doing that as we're happen to do here on the east side of the Corn Belt, or is everybody else doing the same thing or trying some different chemistries to kind of work things around a little bit for weed control?
Well, Dave, let me tell you, we are here in Ohio. This will be our third year for 100% Liberty beans. We kind of jumped on that, thinking that was the thing to do. We really didn't have a problem with mare's tail, but we saw a little bit coming in our area a couple of years ago, so we decided to go ahead and switch beans to 100% Liberty. So that was a change for us, and we're still glyphosate on the corn. But with the pre we've been putting down, we haven't even had to spray the corn the last couple of years. But so yeah, we are trying to change that up and try to stay ahead of the game on that.
Right.
There was a really good article put out the other day I read by the University of Missouri Plant Science Division, and it was about the glyphosate resistance, and they did a study on the resistance on water hemp in the area and what different modes of action it was resistant to. And about the only one that wasn't resistant to anymore was the PPO inhibitors and the stuff you were getting in your residuals you put down in your pre. So that's kind of the approach we've taken around here is we do a fall burn down now and try and keep all the winter annuals down. And then in our first pass on our corn and our beans, we put down another residual and just try and not even give the stuff a chance to get up and get growing is, our approach on it. And we've kicked around the Liberty beans. We're not ready to make that jump yet. But I'd say in the next year or so, we'll probably look at the Liberty beans. And there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe as far as the soybeans, as far as the dicamba beans and the other chemistries they got coming out.
Yeah.
What about in the Western Corn Belt, Zach?
Yeah, we've tried to rotate our modes of action as much as we can over the last few years. We've started using more Liberty where we can, and we've just kind of tried to stay ahead of that game, kind of seeing how the glyphosate resistance is kind of showing up all over. We don't have any resistant weeds at this point, but we'd rather take preventative measures than try to fix something.
Any other questions for each other?
Yeah, how much grain do you have left in your bins to haul? I want to figure out what the market's going to do here.
We don't have to share everything, do we?
No, we don't. I'm just kidding, Dave. That's fine.
You figure out what that market's going to do, I'd appreciate it if you'd let me know.
Absolutely.
Let me share this with you. Our group went to China and met with the purchasing agents for soybeans in January. Those were the questions they had for us. Was that how many beans have you forwarded contracted for 14 crop, and what price did you sell them at? Because they're plotting, they're trying to get their deal, and so they were very pointed questions, and so we've decided that maybe sharing all information is not a good thing.
I think you're exactly right. I hope you didn't tell them any more than you told us.
Yeah. Yeah, we did not. That's right. Yeah.
You bring up a good point, though. Talking about marketing, when are you starting to make, or at this point, are you starting to think about your marketing decisions, or do you ever really stop when it comes to what you want to do with what's left in the bin?
Well, what's going to happen with Ukraine? I mean, that's another thing that is going to affect our corn market is the Ukraine situation, and because they produce a lot of corn over there, and so if that gets settled, that's going to change things for us. I mean, it potentially changed things for us. And so there's what if questions is what where we're at right now. I know, and quite honestly, guys, they're shipping in beans from Brazil to the south, the livestock industry right now, because we're short of beans. So if you got beans in the bin they're going to continue to. That market's going to continue to be good. There's no question. But they are shipping Brazilian beans in for soybean meal crush to that poultry and hog industry down in the southeast. So beware of that.
As it turns out, for us up here, we should have sold the corn at harvest and put the beans in the bin. We stored our corn at a little under $5, and then we sold it about the same price a couple months later, and look what the beans have done. So you only got so much storage. You got to make a decision early what to do with it. But to answer your question, Megan, as far as marketing, never really stopped marketing, because by the time you finish marketing one year, it's time to start thinking about the next, if you don't have to do them both at the same time. So I know I've already started marketing some for the 2014 year. Not too far. I don't have too many bushels contracted, but definitely started thinking about it.
Yeah, I'd say the same up our way. It's a continual thing, like Adam said. It's the crop years go from one to the next, and they overlap, and so it's a constant thing. Whether it's old crop or new crop, you're always thinking about it. One of the, I've kind of one of those things where when the market's up, you wish you weren't as aggressive as you were, and if the market was down, you'd be happy how aggressive you were as far as making sales, and so that's kind of where we're at. One of the issues for us, I know David mentioned the imports of soybeans down in that area. It's been rail has been a huge issue for us. We're seeing kind of some historically wide basis since the ethanol industry came in for both corn and soybeans in the area, just because of we can't get the product out. South Dakota grew a huge crop. North Dakota grew a huge crop. Minnesota grew a huge crop this last year. And with the weather delays this winter, rail has been a huge issue. I think Burlington Northern's the main rail in South Dakota, and they said that they were nearly 30 days behind, and they were over 30 days behind schedule in North Dakota. And so it was an issue for guys getting fertilizer in prior to planting and getting crops out. And so our price has taken a huge hit. Last year at this time, we were probably a 20 or 30 under on our corn, and this year we're 70 to 80 under.
Oh, my.
Wow. Hey, Keith, up there in your area, is rail an issue because some of it's tied up with the oil movement and that fracking oil that's being shipped out?
Yeah, that's what we're hearing. There's just a huge demand pull for that. What Burlington Northern's told us is they had it in their expansion plans, but I think that they may, possibly underestimated how quickly that would grow. And right. So the combination of things, and then the cold weather, when we had so much cold weather, from my area north last winter, that they said that when it gets below 0 degrees, they actually have to split the trains. And so instead of 110 cars, you got 55 with the same locomotives, just for braking power, electrical generation, things like that. And so that was another issue that played into it. Combination with increased demand for rail use through big crops, corn and soybeans, and then the oil from the Bakken, but also the cold weather cut their capacity in half for a period of time this winter.
You'd mentioned you were 70 under on the basis, and I looked at Bungie last night at Morristown, and they're 50 over.
Oh, wow.
So that's such a huge difference, and
yeah,
we're sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, Well, it's not uncommon for us to be, you know, I mean, what we would consider a good basis, I mean, an exceptional basis, if we could get back to even money. And that's why, you know, the ethanol industry kind of had some of its roots in this area, just because we've historically had lower corn prices. And, you know, it depends on how large the crops are, you know, will have an impact on the basis as far as local demand. But, you know, things kind of get priced accordingly. You know, we probably don't have to pay the land rents that you guys would, even if we could get similar production, just because the revenue we generate is not going to be the same.
Yeah.
Guys, anything else for this week? I'm going to take that as a no. So we will see you all next week, and keep in mind that we air every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, and you can view us each week at brownfieldagnews.com. Thank you very much, and we will see everybody next week and get an update and see how everybody is getting along and see how things kick off this spring.
Be safe, guys.
Thanks. Yep. Stay
Thanks,
safe.
Megan.
Guys.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks.